The muscle you are losing in your legs after 60 is being decided at the breakfast table. Not on your walks, and not because you stopped trying. You can put something in a bowl tomorrow morning that starts turning it around, and it has been sitting in the dairy aisle the whole time. But it only works for one reason. Your muscles have developed anabolic resistance, which just means they stopped answering small amounts of protein, so below a certain amount in a single sitting the building switch never flips. Get that number first or the food does nothing. Start with what happens inside a muscle fiber in the hour after you eat and what changed about that after 60. Your leg muscles are torn down and rebuilt constantly. Every day, some of the protein in your quadriceps and your glutes is broken apart and replaced, and the replacing happens in bursts. A meal arrives, amino acids show up in the bloodstream, and the muscle switches on a building response that runs for a few hours and then shuts off again. Nutrition researchers call that response muscle protein synthesis. You can picture it as a pilot light that flares up after a meal and then settles back down. At 30, that pilot light was easy to flare. A modest amount of protein, the kind in a small cup of yogurt, was enough to trigger it. Your muscle answered almost anything you gave it. After 60, the same signal arrives and the muscle barely responds. The sensors that detect amino acids get less sensitive. The machinery that turns those amino acids into new muscle protein is slower off the mark. That effect has a name in the research literature, anabolic resistance, and it is one of the most consistent findings in the study of aging muscle. Your legs can still build. They simply stopped responding to a small nudge. So the amount matters more than it used to, and it matters per meal, not per day. According to a review published in Frontiers in Nutrition, international guidelines for older adults recommend roughly 25 to 30 grams of protein at each of the 3 main meals, together with about 3 grams of an amino acid called leucine in that same meal, specifically to counteract the loss of lean mass. Leucine is the trigger. It is the amino acid your muscle reads as the actual instruction to start building. Below that amount, the meal still feeds you. It just does not flip the switch. 12 grams of protein at 8 in the morning does not build half as much muscle as 25 grams does. It builds close to nothing because the response behaves more like a threshold than a slope. Now look at what goes on the table at 8 in the morning. 2 slices of toast with jam gets you about 4 grams of protein. Coffee gets you none. A banana adds 1. A bowl of cereal with a splash of milk lands somewhere near 8. 2 scrambled eggs, which sounds like a serious protein breakfast, comes in around 12. So the morning is not close. Research indexed in the National Library of Medicine has examined how adults over 60 spread protein across the day, and it keeps finding the same shape. Breakfast is the lowest protein meal. Lunch is a little better. Dinner carries most of the day's total and often carries it alone. If the only problem were the total, this would already be solved. Add up a day like that, and it can look respectable on paper, a number your doctor would not blink at. But the muscle never sees a daily total. It sees 3 separate meals, and 2 of them landed under the line. The switch flipped once, at dinner, and stayed off for the other 20 hours. Rearranging what you already eat is not enough on its own either. When researchers tested that directly, older adults who spread the same amount of protein more evenly across the day, without eating any more of it, showed no measurable change in lean mass or strength over a couple of months. Moving grams from dinner to breakfast is not the fix. The morning meal has to genuinely clear the line, which almost always means adding protein rather than shuffling it. But the threshold is only half of what is going wrong. Breakfast is also the hardest meal to fix, because the list of foods that clear 25 grams before you have finished your first cup of coffee is short, and most of them require cooking, portioning, or planning at the exact hour of the day when you have the least patience for any of it. If protein were the whole mechanism, this could end at the dairy aisle. There is a second condition, and it decides whether what you eat ends up in your legs or somewhere else entirely. I will come back to it once the food is settled. The number is settled. What goes in the bowl is the easier half. It is cottage cheese. It is a plain tub from the dairy case. It's the same one that has been sitting next to the sour cream your entire adult life. A full cup carries roughly 23 to 28 grams of protein, depending on the brand. So read your tub, because the spread between brands is wider than you would expect. That single cup does most of the work of clearing the threshold on its own cold with no stove involved and no portioning beyond a spoon. The protein in cottage cheese is dairy protein, mostly casein, and dairy protein carries leucine more densely than most plant sources do. That density is why it turns up so often in clinical nutrition work with older adults. 1 cup on its own, though, lands at the bottom edge of the leucine window rather than comfortably inside it. So do not stop at the tub. Add 1 small second item and you clear both numbers with room to spare. 2 pairings that work. The first is 1 cup of cottage cheese with a hard-boiled egg chopped through it. The egg is small in volume and meaningful in leucine, and together they put the meal past both targets. You can boil 6 eggs on a Sunday and they keep in the refrigerator all week. The second is 1 cup of cottage cheese with half a cup of plain Greek yogurt stirred in. Another dairy protein, another dose of leucine, and nothing to cook at all. If you have not eaten cottage cheese since the 1970s, the texture is the objection, and it is a fair one. There are 2 ways around it. The savory version is black pepper, a chopped tomato, a little olive oil, and salt only if your blood pressure allows it. Eaten that way, it behaves like a soft cheese on a plate rather than a diet food from another era. The sweet version is berries, cinnamon, and a spoonful of honey, and frozen blueberries work here and cost less than fresh. If the texture is still the problem, blend it. 30 seconds in a blender or with a hand mixer turns the curds completely smooth, and once it is smooth, it will fold into anything you already eat in the morning without announcing itself. 2 things to check on the tub before you buy it. First, sodium. Cottage cheese is salty, and if you are managing blood pressure, look for the low-sodium version, which most stores now carry next to the standard one. Second, the fat percentage matters far less than you would think for this purpose. Whole 2% and fat-free all carry similar protein. Pick the one you will finish every morning, because the tub you eat twice and abandon in the back of the refrigerator does nothing. And a tub costs a few dollars. Compare that to the shelf of supplements you have been told for years you need. If you are finding this helpful so far, consider subscribing. We cover strength and nutrition after 60 like this every week. While all of this is happening at the breakfast table, your legs are running on a clock of their own. Muscle does not shrink evenly. The fibers you lose first are the fast ones, the type 2 fibers. And those are the fibers your legs use for the movements that happen quickly and under load. Standing up out of a low chair. Catching yourself when your foot clips the edge of a rug. Climbing the last 2 stairs when your legs are already tired. Slow, steady walking runs mostly on the other kind of fiber, which is why you can walk faithfully for years and still find that getting off the couch has quietly become a 2-handed job. Your quadriceps and your glutes are the largest muscles you own, and they are the ones carrying you between the chair and the kitchen, the car and the front door, the bed and the bathroom at 2 in the morning. When the building switch flips only once a day, those are the muscles paying for it, because they are the ones with the most tissue to maintain and the most weight to move. The meal you treat as the smallest one of the day is the one with the largest gap to close. Run that across a year. 365 mornings where the switch never flipped in the muscles that decide whether you keep standing up without help. That is a threshold nobody told you existed, applied to the one meal where almost nothing on the table crosses it. Which brings me back to the second condition. Cross that threshold and the amino acids arrive. Your body builds with them wherever it has recently been asked to work, and if nothing has asked your legs for anything, the signal arrives with no address on it. That is why protein on its own slows the loss without reversing it, and why anyone telling you that a food by itself rebuilds a thigh is selling you something. The muscle needs load. That does not mean a gym or a barbell. Load here means asking the muscle to work against real resistance, and for your legs, your own body weight is real resistance. The smallest version that counts takes about 2 minutes. Sit in a sturdy kitchen chair with your feet flat and about hip width apart. Fold your arms across your chest so you cannot push off with your hands. Stand up, taking about 3 seconds on the way up. Then lower yourself back down, taking about 3 seconds on the way down. That slow lowering is where a large share of the strengthening happens, and it is the part everyone rushes. Do 10 of those, rest for about a minute, then do 10 more. 2 sets, twice a day. Once within a couple of hours of that breakfast, and once in the afternoon. If 10 is too many, start with 5 and build. If you need your hands on the armrests at first, use them and take them away a little at a time over the following weeks. If you cannot rise without your hands at all yet, put a firm cushion on the chair. Raising the seat shortens the distance and makes the movement possible today, and the cushion comes out as the legs come back. That is the pair. The cottage cheese gives your legs the raw material and the leucine signal to start building. The chair stands give them a reason to spend it there. Either one alone gets you a fraction of the result, and together they cost nothing beyond a tub of dairy and a chair you already own. What changes and when? Nothing changes in the first week, and anyone promising otherwise is guessing. The earliest gains from this kind of work are neurological. Your nervous system gets better at recruiting fibers that already exist, so the movement feels steadier and less wobbly before the muscle looks any different in the mirror. Somewhere in the second month, the changes show up where you live. Standing up from the dining chair takes one effort instead of a rock forward and a second attempt. The last few stairs stop being a separate decision you make at the bottom. Getting out of a low car seat happens without reaching for the door frame. Both grocery bags come in from the car in one trip.
As you can see right here,
Whether you are the grandfather who wants to get down on the floor with a toddler and back up again unassisted, or the grandmother who intends to keep taking the stairs at church for another decade, the muscles doing that work are the same ones, and they are fed at the same hour of the same morning. 2 medical notes before you change anything. If you have kidney disease or reduced kidney function, do not raise your protein intake without speaking to your doctor first. Higher protein is well tolerated by healthy kidneys and is not something to assume with damaged ones, and that is a short conversation worth having before the first tub. And if you have had a recent hip or knee surgery, or a fall you are still recovering from, ask your physical therapist before you add the chair stands, because they may want to adjust the height or the count for where you are right now. The muscle you are losing in your legs is being decided at the breakfast table. That was true this morning, and it will be true again tomorrow morning. And the whole difference between those 2 mornings is 1 cup of cottage cheese, 1 small thing stirred into it, and 10 slow stands out of a kitchen chair. The dairy aisle has had this on the shelf the entire time. It only ever needed the number standing in front of it. There are more videos like this on the channel.